Hey guys, welcome back to releasethecraftin. Priscilla here with day 8 of the hashtag Poevember 25. That's right, that's a Poevember, Edgar Allan Poevember challenge, where we're doing 30 days of cool stuff, based on Edgar Allan Poe poems. That's what we're doing, and here we are. On day 8, the prompt is spirits. And so I thought I'd make a fun little bit of ephemera, bust out these specimen dies that I have a bajillion of, because I keep buying them because I keep losing them, and then I find them and go, oh yeah. So I thought I would use them today to make some captured spirit specimens, and also show you a way to use up bad prints if your printer is like mine and is fighting you, because I had a whole different plan when I started this. I printed out some images from the kit on vellum and was like, here's what we're gonna do, and we're so smart and clever and cool and sexy, and we've got all this stuff planned out that we're doing today, and we're so cool and on top of it. And then my printer was like, what if I ate up this piece of paper and just made it garbage and gave you a bad print that you can't even use at the end of the day? And so then I tossed it into the trash, and I was like, you know what, I'm done with you, I'm done with myself, I'm done with reality. I'm gonna go and stop crafting today. I'm taking this as a sign from the universe, like loud and clear. It's been well received. I'm not supposed to craft anymore after this, apparently. And I just accepted the L and I moved on, right? And I was like, okay, come back, try it again, and we'll print tomorrow and see if our printer is a little bit more cooperative. But then I was like, you know what? No. No, in fact, we're not going to do that. In fact, we're going to use this bad print because, one, I hate wasting vellum. Of all the paper products I could waste, vellum is my least favorite to waste. And I don't know why, because it's not super expensive. It's just one of those things where I go, this feels really fancy and expensive, and therefore, ergo, because it feels fancy and expensive, I don't want to waste it. So we're doing this. And I used a texture fade embossing folder. My pro tip is to dampen your paper before you put it in there, because otherwise you run the risk of highly tearing up your paper when you put it into these things, or not getting as clean of an impression as you want. Dampening the paper allows the fibers to relax a little bit, and so that takes the shape a lot better, and then when you dry them pretty quickly, they stay nice and well embossed. And so what we're going to do, you guys, in this particular video, we're going to break every rule I've ever told you about embossing and heat embossing. Starting from the jump, we're not going to get a good saturation of embossing ink on these. We're going to go very lightly over the top, because we're only trying to pick up as much of the raised edge as possible without getting the whole thing. If you get the background too, it doesn't matter, because my goal here is to make something that looks like old, worn out metal. So that's what we're doing here. So the rule number 2 that I'm breaking here is I am going to tamp off as much of the embossing powder as possible. So doing the thing I never do, which is going back over the top, flicking it off, rubbing off extra clumpy bits with my finger. I'm going to try to get as much off as possible without absolutely wiping it clean, because I want it to be grungy looking, and so I want it to look really rough. I want it to be patchy. Also, I only want those raised edges to show, not everything else, so I'm trying to make sure that I clear up as much as I can. So instead of getting a nice crisp, full, heavy impression, we're getting the lightest, top coatiest bit. And honestly, at this stage, I knew I was cooking, because I really loved how this came out. I was like, oh, you're doing this again for sure. Just at this stage, where it's at its shiny, glossy stage. So we're gonna heat emboss like normal. Just trying to melt all this powder. This is silver. It's just regular silver powder that we are embossing here. And you could stop right here. You absolutely could, and you'd have a nice little grungy metal looking thing with a nice background and everything, and just so delicious. But then I was like, older. I want this to look older. So I'm going to hit it with some of this salvage patina spray. It's a fast way to do patina. You could do the same thing with teal paint. And then I'm going to come back through with just some of the raw re-inker and forest moss that I have. You can also use the stamp pad. I didn't want to look for my stamp pad. That's exactly what happened here. So I'm going to go back there, and then I'm going to spray it with water. 1, to oxidize the salvage patina, but 2, to activate the re-inker to get that to move around a bit. Now keep in mind, because we don't have a very good impression on here, the background of this is still black. So the majority of this color is going to fade into the blackness, and that is okay, because I just want the hint of green to it. I just want it to be a little bit tarnished, a little bit messed up. Here's now where we break rule number 3. Because I put a bunch of water on this, as I am drying it with my heat tool, to get it to actually dry, I have to then get really close and really long with the exposure of heat to this, which is going to cause my embossing powder to burn. And I want that to happen on purpose. Because what's going to happen is most of these embossing powders are mixed up of different colors, usually like the pigment color, clear, and maybe sometimes white if it's something opaque. So what happens when you overheat embossing powder is that it starts to separate. So the clear tends to run off. It tends to just try to escape whatever's on there. And you're left with the opaque colors and sometimes the pigment, but the pigment will burn usually pretty fast. So what's happening here is the water is getting underneath the embossing powder as I'm reactivating it, which is also causing it to get a little bit more bubbly and textury, and then it's also getting a little bit like white and burnt looking, and I want that to happen too because I want this to look like corroded old metal that's been worn down over time, which is not going to be perfectly shiny. So we're going to get some patches in here that are white and rough looking, and then we're going to get some nice like shiny silvery patches that have patina, and they have a little bit of grungy like moss sludge on them, and that's what we're going for. That's the absolute look here. So you can see here the absolutely destroyed piece and the part where I crumpled it up and tossed it in the trash can, much to my own chagrin, because now I have to fight it to cut these pieces out. Not that I super crumpled this or anything, but my printer absolutely ate these up and left marks all over everything. The last one has like watermarks on it. I don't even know. It looks like somebody spit all over it. I don't know. That's how it came out of the printer, which is wild to me. Honestly, my printer has been fighting me for a couple of days now. Printing out the entirety of this kit, this massive kit, was a struggle because I needed my printer. It was then at that moment it chose to fail me, which is how printers work. That is their design. When you need them most, they will in fact fail you. Yeah, but then I was like, you know what? We can salvage this. I only need to pull the faces out of here, and the little streaky bits that are still like hanging around in there will still work as like added grunge and texture to the background of this. And now it looks like I did it on purpose, not that my printer ate it up, which is what happened. And that's what I'm telling myself, and I refuse to hear otherwise. Because it works. It still works. It looks grungy. It works great with here. But we're trapping some spirits. We're taking some photo slides of the spirits. You saw in the beginning, I flipped the die around so I could get the hole on both sides. Because this is vellum, I want it to show through. If I put it on the black, it's going to be hard to see what's on these images. Now, I could put white inside of the specimen card, and it would show through just as well. But I like the idea of having something you can hold up to the light and get kind of a good look at and be like, is that a ghost? Is that what we're seeing here? And yes, it is in fact what we're seeing here. We're seeing some spirits trapped on these little slides that I'm turning into like little photo slides, essentially, is what I've done. So in my vacation slideshow, I will show you these and be like, and here's the ghost that I saw. And yeah, I kind of love it. I love this effect a lot. It's definitely one I'm going to revisit for sure. Because I'm telling you, once I heated up the embossing powder, I was like, Priscilla, you freaking genius. And I'm not like so egotistical to say that like nobody's done this before. I absolutely believe other people have done this, and this is just my first time doing it and thinking of it. But for me, this is a new thing, and I love how this came out. I love even the grunginess of it when I went back and made it a little bit grungier, a little bit dirtier. Still also good, very satisfying. So definitely if you have like an embossing folder or something that you can try this out with, do it, because it's delightful. You could probably achieve the same effect by using like a grungy stamp and brushing off most of the effect. You just wouldn't have the raised edges that you would get on the embossing folders. But you could still get some kind of texture, something similar to this if you don't have that. So don't be discouraged. There are other ways to achieve this. I love how this came out. I love it so much. And then I was like, oh, yeah, remember how you're doing a challenge and you have to sort of make this tie into something somewhere? So I was like, well, we'll juice it up a little bit. I don't want to go too crazy because I'm still trying to figure out exactly how thick the pages are going to end up and how much decoration I can do in the long run. But I decided to pull out some of my haunted word sheets and use those because they were on the nose. One of them literally says spirits. So I was like, yeah, obviously this is the one you need to use. And I figured it might as well, like, give the Gothic sheet a break and use this one instead. So I picked up some ghostly words. We have supernatural, decomposing, and apparitions. And then I'm just going to ink those up a little bit. And then in the clearing of my craft space, which I had to do because we're getting they're gonna come clean out my fireplace that I never used for reasons beyond my fucking understanding. But I found some of the dies that I had already cut out, some of my spooky die cuts. So I was like, okay, let's pop these on here too, and just go for it. And nothing too crazy. I kept it pretty simple because I wanted the frames to speak for themselves more than anything else. Because we did so much work to make them grungy and delicious looking that I didn't want to cover them up. But just a little pop of something, a little something to give it something to go off of. I'm gonna tuck those into probably like some pockets and some tuck spots as we go about decorating the book. So they're not gonna end up on the page right now. Not to say that they won't end up on a page at a future point. I might decide to make them like a fun little flip up or something, or just stick them down on a page. I don't know. I haven't planned that far ahead. But yeah, I might decide to do that, and we'll see what happens. But more than likely, they're going to end up tucked into pockets and tuck spots throughout the book. I just have to remember to put one in the second signature so I can remember when I do my flip through what I did for this prompt. But yeah, I really love these. I hope that you guys give this a shot. Definitely try this out and let me know if you're able to achieve similar grungy effects, and if you have any experience burning your embossing powder, or how you feel having to burn your embossing powder, because that's definitely the first time I did it was an experience, and that was on accident. Doing it on purpose is a whole different game, but it's definitely very rewarding and very fun, and yeah. That's everything I think I have to say. So come back tomorrow, see what we do for the next day of Poevember. That's hashtag Poevember25. And until then, guys, I appreciate your faces. Happy crafting. Don't forget to check out the playlist in the description box below. And goodbye.